This week on Full Circle Florida, Disney sues DeSantis, the state's largest employer, alleging Governor Ron DeSantis oversaw a targeted campaign of government retaliation and warns the governor could do the same against small business owners if they speak against him. How the governor is responding and where this goes next. Tampa on the rise.
6 years ago, we had to convince companies to come here. You know, they would say, Tampa, what's Tampa?
The city by the bay becoming a city on the international stage. On the same week, Governor Ron DeSantis visits Israel. Our Micah Paluska takes you inside the billion-dollar Florida mission to connect the Sunshine State to the Promised Land. The Great Resignation is over. Now companies are laying off workers. Major job cuts announced just this week. So how do you stay ahead and protect yourself? We speak to an expert to get insight and help you navigate the times ahead. And where in the world is Ron DeSantis? The globetrotting governor takes his non-presidential candidate show on the road. But why? And why now? And we start here with the story no one could escape this week. Disney versus DeSantis. Welcome to Full Circle Florida. I'm Lauren St. Germain in for Paul this week. Disney sued the governor, claiming government retaliation after the state took away control of Disney's land. This all started when Disney spoke out against a state law banning discussion of gender identity and sexual orientation in schools. So where does this go from here? Capitol reporter Forrest Saunders has the details and the governor's response.
The feud that started with Disney's opposition to what critics call the Don't Say Gay bill last year now heading to federal court. The company filed a legal challenge Wednesday alleging the governor and state officials were part of a, quote, targeted campaign of government retaliation. It's after lawmakers approved a takeover of Disney's special district earlier this year, putting in place a state board to oversee the about 40 square miles of land around the Orlando theme parks. Disney says the governor and new board violated First Amendment rights and contracts it signed with the district's old board, Reedy Creek, to maintain power. Quote, in America, the government cannot punish you for speaking your mind, reads the lawsuit.
I'm very excited because I think they should have done it a long time ago.
Orlando Senator Linda Stewart, among the Democrats who've opposed the crackdown on Disney from the beginning, she felt like justice was coming.
This is the only way that justice can be heard because they're not listening to the voices. They're not listening to the people.
The lawsuit arrives as lawmakers inch closer to sending the governor a new Disney bill to reinforce the state board has authority over the district. While the Senate sponsor didn't comment, other Republicans did.
The governor's not going to give up to what I know and understand. I'm not speaking for him, but Disney will lose this fight.
Rep. Fred Hawkins is involved with the House's version of the new bill. He thinks it'll stand no matter how the company's legal challenge turns out.
The special district was created by the legislature. The legislature can take it away and doesn't need to have a reason.
Purely simply as that.
Purely as simple as that.
They're upset because they're actually having to live by the same rules as everybody else. They don't want to have to pay the same taxes as everybody else, and they want to be able to control things without proper oversight.
And Forrest joins us now from the Capitol. Forrest, I feel like you've been living at the Capitol this week, very busy up in Tallahassee. And let's start with the Disney fight because it just got a lot more complicated. So where could this go next?
Well, it sounds like it's going to go to federal court. I mean, if Disney is taking this legal action, you can expect that one of the most powerful media companies on the planet has the legal resources to see this thing through. And so what we expect is that we will eventually get to a point where the governor's attorneys, maybe the attorneys for the new oversight board, will all gather with Disney's attorneys in the federal courthouse here in Tallahassee to discuss next steps. What that will look like, we don't know. We don't know how long this legal dispute will last. And there are some Republicans even who are coming out suggesting that maybe the governor has jumped the shark with the Disney fight. So it all depends on the politics of this, too. How far is Governor DeSantis willing to go in this fight? He has seemed very committed to it and making sure that, in his words, the company has an even playing field with all of the other corporations across the state and doesn't have these special privileges. So we will wait and we will watch and we will find out in due time.
Absolutely, and we'll talk a little bit more about the Disney versus DeSantis fight with our political analyst in just a few minutes. So, Forrest, you know, a lot's going to happen in the next week in this lawmaking session. So what are the big loose ends that lawmakers need to wrap up before Friday?
Well, there are several big bills that need to get across the finish line if the governor wants to get all of his goals accomplished in at least some capacity. One of them is the higher ed reform bill, which goes after critical race theory, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. That is churning its way through the Senate. It's got to get over through the House. You also have the big immigration policy. It's not everything that Governor Ron DeSantis originally wanted. This is a watered-down version. The Senate amended it recently. So E-Verify, no longer a blanket requirement for all businesses. Instead, it's if you have 25 or more employees, you have to go through the E-Verify system. There is also no provision in there to strip Dreamers of in-state tuition access. That was another thing that Governor Ron DeSantis wanted to see, but we haven't seen that materialize in these final moments. The Senate and House were able to pass their big election reform bill. That is going to get onto Governor Ron DeSantis' desk, and I know that there are a lot of questions about that policy as well because it does contain that resign to run provision, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
All right, Forrest, thank you so much for joining us today. A lot to follow for the next week. Next here on Full Circle Florida, the axe is swinging at major companies. Thousands of layoffs were announced this week, and there's more to come. So how do you stay ahead in this economy? Expert insight you can use coming up next.